Shields up, Ironbreakers. I'm here with another episode of Kast, and today we're going to be talking about Remnant 2. We have a DLC coming up on Tuesday, and with me is Ben Cureton, Principal Designer, if I remember your title correctly.
Yep.
How you doing, Ben?
I'm doing all right. One of a few Principal Designers. I don't want them to get left out. We have I'm the one that kind of oversees progression and archetypes and gear and balance and all that stuff, and we got some really good principles for level design and boss design and stuff like that too, so don't want to leave them out. But they're not here, we're leaving them out, so.
Yeah, so, we don't want to leave them out, but they're not here soon.
But they are left out, but yeah.
It is what it is. So I'm actually curious, what have you been playing recently? Because we always talk about like all these games, and I feel like you're one of the people that I know in the industry that you play way more games than me. Like, I wish I could play as many games as you do.
Well, I definitely try to play everything I can, but this year is silly because of the backlog. Yeah. And I've been trying to catch up, and it's just not possible. So I was playing more recently Talos Principle 2. I love Talos Principle. For people that don't know, it's a puzzle game. In the same vein as Portal, whereas Portal is Portals, orange and blue, and a game like The Witness, if anybody's played that, which I also loved, is all about the little snake puzzles. Talos Principle is about beams. So I got to connect this power source to this receptacle, and there's a million ways to do it. There's beam splitters, there's reflectors, there's just crazy stuff. And I like it because there's no enemies, there's no stress. It's just me sitting there going, I don't think this is possible, and then trying to figure it out.
A nice chill-out game.
It is, yeah, because nobody's after you, right? You don't have to worry about like the elite sound or the aberration sound, or I'm like, I could just relax here. And then the dramatic part is, you're sitting there and you're really thinking, and you think, I almost have this, and then the cat starts crying. You're like, I forgot what I was doing. Damn it! I had the solution in my head. Yeah, let me go give her food real quick.
The moment I've been playing you get your eyes off of that, it's just like, oh, it's gone.
But sometimes it helps. I'll tell you. Sometimes you I think this happens in a lot of cases. You take a break and you come back and you see it a different way, and you're like, oh, that was easy. Why was I stuck? Because I was looking at a puzzle the other day for like 45 minutes, an hour, and I was trying different things, and I came really close to solving it in general. And then I thought, oh man, I have no idea. And then we went somewhere. We went to get food, and then I sat down and I was like, oh yeah, this is easy. Because you think about different ways, yeah. So I've been playing that. Oh, go ahead.
It's kind of like Souls bosses in a way, where sometimes if you just take a break and then you come back like a couple of hours later, it's like, oh, this is so simple. Like you just you get to a point where you get tilted. But keep going.
Well, so I played that. I am playing that. I'm basically at the end. I have like all the main puzzles done. There's like 100 puzzles, and now I'm doing the gold mode ones, which are really hard. And then I got Risk of Rain Returns, but I haven't like really gone hardcore into that yet. But I love Risk of Rain. But before that, I played Alan Wake 2, so I had to finish that because I love Alan Wake. Alan Wake 1 came out of nowhere for me, and I was like, well, what is this? And I just loved it. And then 2 is probably on the top of my list for my favorite game this year.
Damn.
There's a lot of good games. There's like 20 games, 15 or 20 games where I'm like, in any other year, any of these could probably win Game of the Year, right? Yeah. Because there's some years, and it depends on the outlet, of course, as well. But I mean, I know a lot of people use VGAs as the big one now. But like, I look at other years and I go, well, there's only really one winner. Like in the year Sekiro won, there were some good games, but I'm kind of like, you could see that one winning, right? But then there was the last year, or no, 2 years ago, God of War / Elden Ring, and Elden Ring, everybody was like, they're going to win. And then God of War, like, kind of snuck in at the end because there's also recency bias, and I suffer from that too, right? Where you're like, well, maybe God of War is going to win, right? And then, of course, but it was at least a discussion, and, yeah. All right, the cat's crying. And then she, every time I get on the mic, she'll start to cry, like, pay attention to me. One of our cats. We got 3 cats. So I played Alan Wake. And like I said, every game that I played this year, I suffer from recency bias where I'm like, okay, this is definitely going to win. Because I played Tears of the Kingdom, and I was like, yeah, this is definitely going to win.
Yeah, I felt the same
easy.
way.
It's not even close. And then, there's a bunch of games in between, and then Baldur's Gate, and I was playing Baldur's Gate. Yep. It had the hype, right? And I'm not saying it had the hype and it's not deserved of it. I'm saying it just had this monster, like, it's kind of a small studio, only about 400 people, which is for us, that's big. But, in the grand scheme of things, comparing to an Ubi or an EA or something like that, it's not that many people. And they just made a crazy good game, right? Lots of crazy content. You could play it for 1,000 hours. And I'm like, okay. Well, people are going to be, Breath of the Wild already won Game of the Year. So why would they give Breath of the Wild 2, you know what I'm saying? It's like you're justifying it.
It's definitely a rough year, which is.
But then it just got ridiculous because I also played Jedi Survivor, and I know for some people that's huge on their list because they love Star Wars, they love Souls, they love There's, I definitely played and finished that. There was, there's just too many games. What else?
It's hard to remember. Like even recently, I did a video where I was talking about like some of the games that I covered this year. And as I was just like rattling off, I didn't take any notes or anything. It's like I just didn't even mention Armored Core 6 and Baldur's Gate, and it's like because just so much variety that we had this year that I still think it's an amazing year.
It was because this year wasn't this year also Dead Space remake, and
Dead
Resident
Space
Evil 4 remake, and I know some people don't consider them as worthy to Game of the Years because they're remakes, but I mean sometimes the remakes are just insane. There was like. What else was there? There was obviously Armored Core. Like we talked about that last time I played that. Almost 3.5 times or 2.5 times. I can't remember. Lies of P, which is a big one for some people.
Lords of the Fallen, that came out recently.
Lords of the Fallen,
well.
I played that almost 4 times. You only said I played it 2 times in your last video with Rurikhan.
Did I?
I mean, with Ratatasker. But yeah, you were like, he's played it twice. I'm like, hey, buddy, I played it 3.5 times.
Get it right.
Get it right, baby. But there's other games that people forget about. There's Cocoon. There's
I haven't even played that.
Phantom Liberty, which I loaded up, going, I cannot wait to play this because I played Phantom Liberty. I played the first Cyberpunk. I played Cyberpunk the day it came out. The moment it came out, I finished it that weekend, and I was like, this is cool. I wish it was what I had hoped it would be, right?
Yeah.
And now it is what I hoped it would be. So now I'm like, okay, I got to sit down and dedicate a lot of time to this because I actually loaded up the game and deleted all my saves. I don't even remember what I had. I just deleted all my saves. And I'm like, I'm ready. I'm going to play this. And I'm like, oh, I got sidetracked by all these other games. And then my friend's like, it's got the best storytelling ever. I'm like, I love the world, right? I have a slightly better PC this time. So I'm like, oh, I got to put 100 hours aside for this. But what else?
It's been a crazy year. It's basically
Street
been a
Fighter.
crazy year. Yes, I'm
a huge fighting game fan.
I don't.
I'm a huge fighting game fan. So like I don't run it. I own Dustloop, which is the biggest anime style fighting website. Right, it's like a wiki. I just own it. I started it, but the other guys run it now. A lot of people don't know that, but I was huge into the fighting game community. Also, Mortal Kombat came out, which just won Co-op Game of the Year. I could have picked something else, but I'm just saying. For the golden joysticks, I would have picked something else. Not to diss Mortal Kombat.
Did I hear that wrong? You said co-op game of the year?
Multiplayer game of the year. Multiplayer game of the year.
For a second, I thought you said co-op game of the year, and I was like, wait, what? Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, sorry. Fighting multiplayer, which I thought there was a fighting game category. And I could totally see them winning, or Street Fighter, or somebody. I
haven't even seen the golden joysticks this year yet because I've just been like super swamped, and I've been kind of trying to take it a little bit easier because I can barely think just because with all of the streaming and videos that I've done, I've gotten to a point where it takes me like 70 to 80 takes to start a video. Like it's insane because my head
shields
is just
up Iron Breaker. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly like I was like shields up Iron Breakers, and then what was I talking about? Oh,
yeah, right. What was I talking?
What's the name of this game?
What's crazy is that because I've had this discussion with a couple other people about like, hey, what are the good games this year? And I'm like, we've already listed 10 or however many. But we haven't talked about Super Mario Wonder. Is it Wonder 2 or is it just Wonder?
No, it's just Super Mario Wonder. That
game is crazy, right? Liza P. A lot of people enjoy that.
We haven't even mentioned Spider-Man 2, which has like some of the best traversal ever invented. It's so good.
It just came out, right? Like a couple weeks ago.
It's insane.
And then, like I said, the indie games there's crazy ones there. Ghost Runner, and then don't forget we literally missed one of the biggest games of the year, Starfield, right? In terms of money generated, right? Like we just named like 20 games or 15 games where like these are all really like pretty good games. Like people are eating, big time this year. And then we're like, oh yeah. Starfield also came out this year. Right?
Starfield also came out.
Hogwarts Legacy, one of the biggest money generating games of the year.
Interestingly enough, Starfield is my favorite Bethesda game. I never got into Bethesda games, and Starfield was like the first one that I was like, you know what, I can get into this. It's not a perfect game. It's got some problems, but still, I thought it was pretty good.
I 100%ed it. So
damn,
it was one of those games where I thought, like I played Skyrim. I played all of them. I played Morrowind. I played, what is it? Daggerfall. It's I don't even remember the name anyway. Yeah. And then, wait, was that the first one or the second? What was the second one?
No, actually, Daggerfall might have been the second one. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not
Morrowind.
too big into Elder Scrolls lore.
Yeah. Then Oblivion. Me neither, to be honest. But I still have fond memories playing Oblivion because it was like one of the only games for the Xbox 360 at the time.
I remember
played the hell out of it.
I remember playing Morrowind on my PC like God knows how many years ago,
yep.
and killing an NPC in the game telling me, well, this NPC was pretty important. I mean, you can keep playing, but your quest might be broken.
As opposed to Souls, where Souls will just be like,
well,
all right, well, you killed them, cool, have fun.
Sounds fun.
You're like, wait, what do you mean I can't upgrade my weapons anymore? Well, you killed the guy.
You do you. That's your problem now.
But yeah, I've played all of them. Obviously Fallout people, there's a lot of fans of Fallout. For me, Starfield was like, I was excited for it because I like space stuff, like why not? I love RPGs. And it's one of those games that I started and it felt like it started a little slow for me, which I understand when people say like Remnant starts slow for them as well. They're like, oh, I just want to get in and start shooting stuff in the face because they don't want to do the tutorial and meet all the players. They just want, I got a gun, can I just shoot dragons in the face and stuff? Totally get that. Totally understand that. And that's how I felt on Starfield, where I was like, oh man, this is taking a minute. And then right when it started, I was like, okay, I get it. I'm in.
The thing about Starfield is that I did not like the main quest. I didn't think it was particularly interesting. But the side quests, like the faction quests, I thought those were amazing.
Well, we get that comparison too, right? Like there's a lot of, like I saw Ratatasker's video. He's like, he doesn't pull any punches. He's like, I hate the story with every fiber of my, I almost threw my PC out the window. The story was so, no, he didn't say it like that, but that's what it felt like. And then he's like, but the side stories were excellent. And I'm like, geez. He's like, there's got to be a middle ground there. No, but I know what he's saying. I know what he's saying.
It's like different tastes. I'm not,
of course,
I'm not like super in the same opinion there, but it's like I do also enjoy the world stories more than the main one, so to speak. But I think that also has to do with at the end of it. Unless you've played previous Remnant games, at the end of it, you're still like, what the hell just happened? Did we Actually, I'm not even going to say it. I was going to say something, and I was like, no, wait. Well, some people might have not finished the game. Let's not talk about
Well, Remnant is very like, it's the side stories. I think the reason that Dave, the CEO / creative director, and the Quest team did it like that is because there's just so much additional detail that you can self-contain, that you can get when you self-contain a story within an area. Where you're like, this is the story of, Lossum or Losum. This is the story of Yesha. And then you're like, okay, what's going on? And these stories intertwine with these stories. And the overarching story is some bad stuff is happening. You need to get to the bottom. You know what I mean? It's like not as in-depth because these other stories are self-contained. Yeah. So it's just a different delivery method. And I totally understand people that kind of want them all to be woven together. That's totally understandable.
But
like I got the same thing with Starfield, right? Where the first faction quest I did was the Frontiers, and that's not really related to anything. It's just like, you go do the thing and you get your ship, and you're like, dude, that was awesome. You save the guy in the bank or whatever it was, and you're like, oh, this is cool. And then you go back to the main story, which is, hey, what's happening? Right? That's kind of what the story is.
I don't know. The main story just didn't resonate with me at all. But like the Ryujin of being just like corpo scum, I was like, yes, I'm all here for it. Let's go be corpo scum.
Super
that
fun.
Was awesome.
And and the thing that I really liked about that, and that had a little bit of and this is not to spark a debate between Cyberpunk and Starfield, but it had that feeling of like you're doing this story that's kind of like self-contained, and you know what I mean, and it's like, and I don't mean corpo scum slash, cyberpunk comparison. I'm just saying, like, there are these self-contained stories which are really detailed and really involved, and you're like, man, there's a lot here. And then you get back to the main story and you're like, I guess I got to figure out what's going on in the universe. You know what I mean? Which is, it's a big question, but it's not as detailed with all of these characters. And here's the manager, and she's plotting against this person, and this person is doing this, and we need you to assassinate this person, or maybe don't assassinate this person and instead get the data and don't get to see, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's just so involved, which is really cool.
It is cool. So I wanted to ask you specifically about, I don't know how much you deal with engine stuff and whatnot, but like just my experience this year with, say, Unreal Engine, I wanted to ask you, since you're in the industry, like, what's been your experience working with it? Do you feel like it's a phenomenal tool? Because I'm talking specifically because of some of the performance issues that we've experienced this year. Like, you look at Jedi Survivor, which clearly had some serious problems. You look at, like, Lords of the Fallen, I would say they've also experienced some performance issues. And even Remnant 2, to some extent, and its launch also had some performance issues. Like, I'm just wondering, because the one common thread around all of those is the Unreal Engine. And it just seems like stuff has been a little bit rough when it comes to that this year.
Well, it also depends what version they're on, in a way. Like, because I thought Jedi Survivor was on
Jedi
4,
Survivor, I think, is 4.
Yeah, and then because we were one of the first 5s outside.
I'm not sure if Lies of P is also 4 or 5. I think Lies of P might also be 4.
It's probably 4, because I believe the big games at the time were obviously Fortnite. There was us. We were like one of the first 3 or 5 Unreal 5 games, but we developed it on 4, and then over time, eventually
you migrated to 5.
When 5 became available. Here's the thing. By itself, just looking at it from the outside, tool-wise, it's an incredible tool for making games, right? There's so many things involved in making a game, making a character move, making objectives, making everything that Blueprint helps tremendously with. And it's visual scripting, that's in other stuff like Unity and some other things like that. On the tech side, that's the part where I don't get involved in, but I know there are some crazy things that it lets you do, like nanite and all these other things. However, I think when you move into the newest tech, there's always going to be some hurdles, right? And it's I don't know if it's the same hurdles that other people have with Survivor. I remember you had mentioned that one, because there's certain things that are not in Unreal 4 that are in Unreal 5 that cause other challenges, right? And these are just things that people need to figure out over time. But yeah, this was a huge year for performance. Like, it's on everybody's minds, because there were so many games that had their little Twitter post that was like, "Hey, we're working." You're like, "No, another one." You're like, "Damn." But I say the benefits outweigh the cons, because the cons are something that over time you can learn to I don't want to say fix, because yes, you do want to fix them, but like you learn how things work, right? It's kind of like, let's say you had a car. This is a bad analogy, but let's say you had a car, and the car had an accelerator and a brake and a steering wheel, and that's all it had. And then somebody gave you the most modern, craziest car of all time. You would probably have some performance issues, because there's so many crazy things. You're like, I don't know how this works, And in some aspects, that begs the question of like, oh, is it too soon to move to this? Is it just something you need more time to understand? But in the grand scheme of things, you still have this thing that has this.
It has tremendous potential.
Crazy power, right? It's really, really, really. I mean, they're using it for TV shows now and movies. Like, it's not like it's self-contained only to games, right? Like, all of Mandalorian was made in Unreal, right? Which is crazy, right? So I definitely see it as a super powerful tool. It's ubiquitous at this point, because now you can have Unreal experience. Well, you could have had this with Unreal 3 and 4 and get jobs solely being good at Unreal, right? As opposed to other scripting languages and things like that, Python and Lua and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's another concern that I have, because it's getting more and more used, and I'm just like, I'm hoping that more games that use it in the future don't have as rocky launches, because people start becoming a little bit suspicious of the tech as you start having problems with. Another thing that I'm curious. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say Lords also used it, right? So Lords also used Unreal, and it's. I think it's. How would I say this? And this isn't about Lords. I think it's about Unreal in general. I think you have so much power, and you, like I said, you have to learn to harness it. And I think what happens is you may get into a place where you're like, oh, you can now push millions and millions and millions of more polys, right? And so let's try to put millions and millions of more polys in. But like if you were to make a side-scrolling game like Shadow Complex on Unreal 5, it's very unlikely you're going to have performance issues. So there's also an element of what are we trying to do and how far we're going to push this, right? Because if you look at Sony, Santa Monica, they've been using the same engine for a long time. They can get a lot out of it. Yeah, right. And they can get a lot out. Just like what's the one that
Kojima borrowed it as well for that Stranding?
From Guerrilla, right? Yeah, exactly, right?
It's the Decima engine,
They've been just going hardcore on that, and man, they push a lot out on that, and because they know every little tidbit and every little everything. But it's also, it seems a lot more made, customized for what they're doing, right? So something like Unreal, which can do everything, you have to. I think it just takes time to really get those things.
See, this is another one of the things that I wanted to ask, and it kind of like goes into what you're saying of people just like getting used to the tools and all of this stuff. And I hope that people don't take this as in like, oh, they're going to start throwing shade. It's like, this is just a discussion that I'm having. I don't want to. I don't want it to feel like we're throwing shade anywhere. It's just a normal discussion. But like, I feel in certain aspects, like both in Remnant 2 as well as Lords of the Fallen, which is both games, what they have in common is Unreal Engine 5. I feel like the artistic teams might have pushed a little bit too many particle effects. And I'm curious, what is your take on that? Because, like, for instance, when you're going through Lords of the Fallen and some of the snowy areas and whatnot, if you go to Umbral in there, you just start seeing, like, tons and tons of particles everywhere. And snowy
gotcha.
And particularly if you're on, I mean, I'm assuming you played it on PC, but in my case, I was playing on PlayStation 5. You know, the dynamic resolution starts kicking in, and it's just, like, trails of everything. And it just gets too much noise on screen, you know?
Well, I mean, that happens to me. I mean, I'll give you another bit of insight. I was playing, as I said, Talos Principle 2. And Talos Principle 2, I believe, is also on Unreal 5. And there's cases where I've run into that, where I've run into, like, particles or reflections or whatever, and it feels, I don't want to say busy, but it feels like, did this game need these crazy VFX? Because it's a puzzle game, right? Like, I see what you're saying, right? Now it is. I'll be honest. To me, it's kind of like playing Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, where I'm playing it on a the Switch, and I'm like, I don't like that it's 30 frames a second, or sometimes it's 27 frames a second. But then after a while, I just forget about it. I forget. You know what I mean? Like, and I think when you're looking at it with a critical eye, and you're going, what's the performance of Remnant or Talos or Lords or any of these games, you're going to be like, oh, there's performance issues. But when you're playing on a Switch and you're like, oh, I expect it to be reduced, not reduced performance, but performance equivalent to what the machine is, you're okay with it. And that's not giving anybody an excuse. I'm just saying, like, as long as the game is playable, I think people forgive it. But like when you start pushing big graphics, people start comparing graphics, and then they start comparing performance, and it's like this eating snake where you're like, oh, I gotta have the best graphics. Oh, I have slightly worse performance. I gotta have better you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
but have you been because you've played, like, I don't know, thousands of hours of Remnant 2 at this point, have you ever been in a situation where it felt like the screen's a little bit too busy in this scenario, for instance?
I would say the cases where I see that are probably when there are aberrations that have the crazy effects, where I'm like doing some stuff and then like, oh, cube, and then this other thing. However, in that case, and I don't want to come across as just justifying what we do, but I'm like, that is one of those cases where you came across a random combination of BS. And you're like, well, that's the BS you have this time. Because next time you might get something where it's like, oh, the guy's hardy and he's got thick skin. And that's all, and
there's nothing else. Yeah.
You're just like, oh, it's fine. But I've been playing. You'll see in the DLC, there's an area where there's a scripted aberration, and I've had that guy spawn with like cube and some other like teleporters. I can't remember what he had, but the guy also is shooting stuff off his back, and I'm like, there's a lot going on right now. But the next time you come through, he won't have that. So it's like Diablo. Like in Diablo 3 when it first came out, we were doing the rifts. I think rifts came later, but whatever. You would get those mobs that had like thorns, but then melee, you can only deal damage with them with melee or something like that, and then they have an AoE and you're like, well, this seems fair. It's like,
so in Diablo 2, the ones that I remember that were the pretty much like you're done combinations was I think they've patched this eventually, but it was the lightning enchanted and multiple shot.
Oh,
you remember? They would pull out. They would pull out like those caterpillars of lightning, basically, and like one of those even slightly nudged your character, you're dead. It's like instantly. Yeah. I think they patched it later, but yeah, it was.
It's funny because in some of the, this is a different conversation, but it's related. Is that when you have stuff like that, it becomes part of the lore of the game in a way. You're like, remember day one Remnant, remember day one Diablo 3, remember day one Lords, right? Because I know they're doing a lot of stuff in Lords. I've talked to those guys a little bit where they're like, and we've seen their roadmap and stuff, and they're cleaning up this and they're adjusting this, and you're like, yeah, but I played it back when it was ruthless. You know what I mean? Like it was hot. Like the people that beat Liza P before they adjusted some of the difficulties.
Oh yeah, I beat the guy before the very last fight. I beat him twice before the nerf, and I was like, oh, I hate this thing.
The Manus or whatever.
Yeah, Manus. I beat him twice before the nerf.
Yeah, and so it's like that becomes part of its lore, and I'm not saying it justifies it being bad or good or whatever, but it is funny where you're like, oh, remember when we used to do rifts in D3 and you used to get the lightning into this and that, and you're like, oh, those were the days. You know what I mean? Even though it was BS, it was still like kind of fun in its own way. So
on the topic of aberrations, you guys recently also had a you almost themed it around as a Halloween event, but you basically just added like the special aberrations into the game, which then became an evergreen system, which I thought was really cool because it's a neat way to do like, hey, there's this temporary event, but this just stays in the game forever. So that it's not really like a FOMO thing where people are like, oh no, I got to log in during Halloween to do this thing. Yeah. But I'm curious if you feel like the spawn rate of those is in a good place right now.
Well, it's already been adjusted. Like we've gotten some feedback from players. I think so. The Aberration event was very much meant to be like, hey, look what happens when the world gets overrun with aberrations. But it wasn't really like the world getting overrun. It was really only the high intensity tiles, like tiles that would spawn lots of enemies, which are usually in the middle of biomes because they ramp up and then ramp down and then ramp up and then ramp down. So what happened is as we were tuning those for the non-event, we thought, well, we don't want to make it so they spawn too much on Survivor or too much on Veteran. So if you're playing the game and you're already struggling, because most players are find the game challenging, right?
Yeah.
You got to use the right words there because I don't want to say they're bad. I'm just like the average player. The average player finds Remnant challenging. Like we have lots of people.
I find Remnant challenging. We're going to be talking about that soon, but yeah.
even on the base difficulty, it's a challenging game. It's meant to be challenging. And so imagine us saying, okay, well, now when you get to a high intensity tile, which was already challenging for you, now there's an aberration that spawns cube, that spawns, all this BS. And it's like, okay, well, let's do it on the side of caution and have a little bit of leeway there. And then, so we made it really small. It's like 5% chance. And we thought, we got the feedback and we're like, okay, that's a little weak. We're going to double them. So it'll be only 10% on Survivor, but that's still enough. Because now when you play on Veteran, it'll be 20%, which is noticeable. And Veteran isn't that much harder. And then when you play on Nightmare, it'll be 35% instead of, I think, 15%. Okay. And then on Apocalypse, it'll be 50%.
When did those go into the game? Those adjusted spawn rates?
That'll be for the DLC patch. It's
okay.
But yeah, so we have the new values coming in soon. And it'll be interesting to see what the response is there. Like, there will be some people that say, it's a little too hard on Survivor now, right? Or Veteran is a little bit too hard because they show up too often. Now, 20% of the time.
I don't feel like they would show up that like what was the nightmare spawn rate? Because I think at the time I was mostly
15%. It was low. 15%.
Yeah,
now it'll be 35%.
Very low. Yeah.
Yeah, but now it'll be 35.
So Apocalypse was 20 then. That was basically what I was
Apocalypse was 25 because it's Apocalypse. Now it'll be 50. So good luck.
Okay, yeah.
I
want that because like I've only been able to get one weapon, and apparently that one weapon is people keep telling me it's bugged because it's scaling off of mod damage instead of weapon damage.
You're talking about Meridian. Yeah, so Meridian, that's a bug that should be fixed in this patch. Which is funny because I wouldn't say it's a bug, more so that it was scripted without knowing that it should be doing explosion or not mod damage. You know what I mean? It's not like specifically something that's not supposed to be happening. It's something that wasn't designed, so you can look at it and you're like, unintentional, but not technically a bug. But we're gonna fix that to make sure it's doing the right explosion damage and it's scaling with the right things. We've buffed Merciless, which was the one that people are like, it's the weakest one. Well, that's buffed.
Wait, people were saying Merciless is weak?
Corrupted Merciless.
Okay, Corrupted. I was like,
Corrupted Merciless. Yeah, Corrupted Merciless. So primary Merciless is, hold the trigger down and then it'll start to bleed because the reticle.
Yeah, I've only recently noticed that reticle is like a vampire's mouth. Actually,
it's like a wolf's mouth. Yeah, he goes. It's really basic. It's really abstract, but yeah, once it's clenched, it does bleed. And it's just an auto rifle, pretty much, but it's flechettes, it's projectile, so it's not hit scan. And some people like it, some people don't. Some people they're like, "This is my favorite weapon," and other people like, "I don't like it." The new Merciless is a 3-shot rifle. It's like a 3-shot marksman rifle. And if you get all 3 shots of the magazine as a weak spot, it instantly reloads itself. So instead of the slow reload, he kind of goes click and it just reloads. So you can keep shooting. So on final boss or things with, it's really good. But it didn't have bleed. And we've changed it so the mod will now apply bleed. All mod shots will apply bleed. We've increased the fire rate. We adjusted the reload. And we'll see. We try not to do crazy balance tuning, but that one definitely needed a little bit of love, and that was the one that was considered the weaker of the bunch.
the weaker of the new corrupted weapons. Yep. Yeah, but it's like I the main reason I'm asking for Aberration is because like I want to test out the other weapons, and all I got was Corrupted Meridian because I like explosions, and that was it. Yep. I haven't been able to farm anything else.
This will teach you to always play during the events. All one of our events.
Yeah, see, I wanted to, but I wasn't able to. That weekend I was super busy, so it was really hard.
And another reason there's 2 parts of this. That was an experiment for us, right?
Yeah.
We never really done like events, and we thought, well, will this be fun? Will this be interesting? Will players like it? It actually, players did seem to like it. Our Steam last 30 days score went up like 2 points, and it could be related to fixing bugs. It could be more people getting into the game, just enjoying the game, right? Typically, we find.
Hey, I've been doing my part.
No, we appreciate you and a Ratatasker. I always call out Ratatasker, or I've been calling him out because it's funny. Like we'll read, you see his review, and he's like overall his general opinion is very high on it. It seems, but like he'll start with the most negative things. He's like, okay, I want to talk about this game, which has the most annoying thing of all time, and I hate it more than anything. I love this game. It was cool. You know what I mean? You're like, damn it. But no, I really liked his review. But yeah, like it was an experiment for us. Like, do people like this kind of thing? Would they like to see that more in the future? Because it was just a free update. It was just, it didn't cost anything. You didn't have to buy anything. It was just whatever.
I think the important thing when it comes to those events is ensuring that, kind of the same way that you did this one, where in like, okay, here's the aberrations. It's going to go crazy. It's going to be crazy numbers. They're going to be popping up all over the place. And then when we actually make it an evergreen system, it's going to be less frequency, but the system is still there. So if you miss out like I did because I wasn't able to jump in that weekend, it's like you can still get the stuff later. I think that's the most important thing.
Well, that's the second part of what I was saying is we found that people missed it. They're like, you know what? The world felt more interesting with random guys popping up even more.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, we don't want to punish people playing on the base difficulties. But at the same time, we added something fun, and people really seem to like it. So we'll double all the numbers, and in some case, a little bit higher, especially on Nightmare. and let's see the feedback from that. And then maybe we look into stuff in the future, because we've talked about additional things that we want to do, perhaps a mode or whatever. We're like, well, what if people could control that? Like, what if they had a modifier, for example, and they could say always on aberrations. They could get the domination, and like a Hades heat modifier or something like that, right? Where you're like domination, and you always get it. You're like, whoa, that's
reminds me a little bit of like grave lording in Dark Souls. You remember grave lording?
What? I'm trying to remember that. What? Every time I hear grave lord, I just hear Nito. But what am I? Yeah, missing?
Exactly. It was a crazy Covenant mechanic that they had, wherein another player would invade you, but instead of you being invaded, it would be like red. Enemies would spawn. They were actually red as well, and they were way more powerful than the other enemies. Gotcha. And if they killed you, it would count as his invasion was successful.
Well, that's like, so that's like in Elden Ring, right? Where it's like any of the Souls games where you'll like be walking along and a red guy will show up and you'll be like, hey, except
there wasn't a player. It was just like random mobs that they would put in there. But yeah, that's kind of like the vibe that I got from it. It's kind of like grave lording, which I thought was cool. But yeah, I like the idea of being able to adjust the spawn of it. I think that's cool. But I think that would be something that would be really cool, mostly in adventure mode, because I think you should keep the campaign mode. I mean, again, it's just like armchair developer over here is like, I think,
Well, the only drawback to that is that means that they could no longer spawn in. We couldn't have them spawn in Labyrinth, and we couldn't have them spawn in Earth.
Oh,
right?
They can spawn in Labyrinth now?
Well, I'm just saying, like, if we ever wanted them to, because you can't do that in Adventure. So I'm just saying, as an option, if we're like, maybe we should have some more aberrations in Lab. Maybe we should make Earth. And it's like, but you can't play Earth in adventure mode. So it's just something to think about. It doesn't really affect anything right now, but if we were to do it, we're like, maybe we could make it in adventure mode. But again, it might be nice as like a checkbox where you're like, I want Aberration Domination.
Yeah, Aberration Domination.
My Loathsome. I want my, or whatever it is, right? So.
And it just makes farming a little bit more targetable, which is also good.
Exactly. It's like we have no problem with people. I mean, there's tons of ways to get money, but yeah, we have no problem with people farming. We just don't want some things to be like the only way to do things. Like, hey, if you go here and you kill this guy and then reset and kill this guy, it's like, are you taking the fun out of the game for yourself because you found that this is the most efficient way to do things? Like, I'm a grinder. I love grinding things. So for me, if I find a thing like that, I'm okay because I chose to do it. But sometimes people feel compelled to do it. Like, I have to do this or I'm never going to get Meridian. I'm never going to get whatever. And you're like, okay, well, can we lessen that a little bit? So
yeah, I like that. I like that, you don't make it mandatory. That's a good thing. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about the specifically in regards to, like, say, Remnant from the Ashes, the DLC philosophy that you're going with this time, because it appears to be significantly different. Now, I don't remember all of the DLCs from the original Remnant, but I remember that I think the first one that came out was not as meaningful, and then the one that came out afterwards, like Subject, whatever, that one was way
29,
more.
23.
Yeah.
Well, there was the free one, which was Leto's Lab, and it came with just a couple of things, fixes, balance, and that was just Leto's Lab. Came with another boss. It's like a little story. That was an experiment. Then there was Swamps of Courses, which fleshed out the swamps, added more bosses. A couple of bosses, and then of course the Cessna, the Queen, which a lot of people think is still a top 3 boss in all of Remnant, super hard. And then the Subject 2923 was an entire biome, right? Which had 4 bosses, had two world bosses. I can't remember, but it was like a whole add-on.
It seems like this time you guys are going more the route of Subject 2943 in terms of the DLC that you're bringing to Remnant 2, because it's not a new biome, right? But it's essentially like an addition to Loathsome, from my understanding.
It is an addition. So imagine playing Loathsome and you get, I can't remember the name of the story, but you get the Asylum storyline where you're going through Dran and you're going through the Asylum, then you go through the special door. Now you're in Fae, doing some stuff in Fae. You come back after getting the heart for the Nightweaver, right? That's a whole story. There's actually a lot of static overworld pieces, like the Asylum in itself and some other stuff. This is akin to that in that it's an entire story. So it has two new mini bosses. It's got a world boss. It's got a storyline hopefully Ratatasker will like. I'll keep bringing him up and shout outs over. No, but I'm hoping he'll like, because it's one of those stories that's self-contained. Yeah. It does have tie-ins to other areas, of course, but it's like that, and we want it to feel substantial, especially when it comes to rewards, because yes, the experience is there for you to obtain lore and all that stuff, but a lot of people just want new guns and they want new trinkets.
So there's only one boss, right? But he has like the two. Two, three, four.
There's
multiple.
There's world boss, because there's a world boss at the end, but there's also additional bosses, which we've already showed off a little bit, like Impaler.
Yeah, I've been avoiding it because I want to go in like blind.
Okay.
So I've been kind of like
It's definitely a different experience. I'll tell you that. It's still Remnant, but because the overworld is a lot more static, it allows the quest team to do more visual storytelling within the world. Like, this area is specifically important because instead of like, oh, I glued this jungle tile onto this jungle tile, it randomly spawned, and then I put a POI that randomly can show up, point of interest that can randomly show up. Now it's like, oh, this point of interest, like the clock tower or the clock tower in the It's like, oh, that's there because of this, like, and it's in relation to that. And
there's another area that spawns because the clock area spawns, and
they're all important. Yeah, they're all important. So the static overworld can also let you get your bearings. You're like, oh, I got to get there to this place. And I'm here looking at this. Cool. I know where this is going to be. When you come back the next time, it's in the same place, right? Now, all of the dungeons,
they're still random.
Yeah, exactly. So all of the dungeons, all of the normal procedurally generated stuff that we have outside of the overworld is still the same.
So this thing can also be rolled into the campaign. So if somebody buys the DLC, they can randomly get this into the campaign.
Yep.
So let's say if I'm someone who's already finished the game and I want to jump into the DLC, can I just choose to go specifically to that biome? Or do I have to re-roll Loathsomes until I get that one?
So if you have already completed Loathsome and you have adventure mode unlocked, so you could have done any Loathsome story, any of the two, then you will have what we're calling a one-shot adventure. So you can go to adventure and you can roll the Awakened King storyline. And you can play the whole storyline with all new content. The only thing that would be not...
But you have to get it random though, right? You have to...
No. If you go to the one-shot adventure, it'll say Awakened King adventure mode. And it'll spawn Awakened King. And it'll spawn it with all new content. And the only difference is... Or the only thing that is not guaranteed to be new are the corpse drops rings, because those are random. So like you might find a ring that would have been in my nose is itching, I don't know why. You might find a ring that was in the base game, right? Anywhere in Loathsome that could have spawned in Asylum or the other story. But besides that, every other placed ring, every other trinket, weapon, everything, it's all completely new.
This is a new feature then, the one-shot story thing? This is new.
Yep.
Because
you for DLC.
Yeah. Because me and my friends sometimes are trying to roll specific biomes, and we're like, okay, re-roll it again. We didn't get it this time. Re-roll it again, and re-roll.
Well, this is the thing that we've been talking about. In that, so the one-shot adventure is a little bit different than selecting your story. So the one-shot adventure, it guarantees that all the side dungeons, all the bosses, everything is new. It guarantees it, but it's only one shot. Now, we've been talking about adding a feature that says in adventure mode, you can just pick the story that you want. Because that doesn't really hurt anything. You can already do it by rolling.
We're going to do it anyways. Like, that's just a player thing that we're doing already. Like, I
exactly.
Assure you, we're constantly
we've been talking about it. We've been talking about that. There's no reason that we can't do that. And then you could just go and go, I want to roll Asylum. Now, that doesn't guarantee that everything in Asylum is new, because... What is new? Like, they're all you know what I mean? Like there's going to be a boss in this new DLC that can then spawn in your Asylum story, right? Not the world boss, but as a side boss.
Yeah, like for instance, I've recently I got one of those neck pieces that was the silver scarf or whatever, silver band. It increases skill damage.
Silver ribbon,
I got that in my hardcore run, but I didn't have it in my main run. So I was like, oh, we gotta get this for me on the main character. And so it's just like me and another friend of mine just constantly regenerating Loathsomes looking for it, right? Because, there's no way to guarantee it. But I think that you can't really change that. But I think that you should be able to just choose the starting point because we're going to roll that until we get what we want anyways. So
yeah, exactly. Time. I mean, there's no, because you might get it and then you're like, oh, it's my second area. Oh, it's my third area. No, I need it as my first area. We totally understand that. And so right now, the best you can do is just say, I'm going to do a low-sum adventure mode and then hope you get the item that you want. And you know, that's fine, but there's some that it will only appear in certain areas or it'll be static or whatever. Like maybe you want to fight, maybe you want to guarantee Shahala fight. I'm like, okay, well, just roll Shahala's storyline. That's the thing that we've been talking about. We don't guarantee you're going to get all of the corpse drops because that's random. We don't guarantee what side dungeons you're going to get. That's random, but at least you're on the main path that you want.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably a fair compromise.
Yeah, I think that's cool. So I'm curious in terms of length. Do you think that the in terms of the length of this DLC that we're getting, is it comparable to the current one? Do you think that it's a little bit bigger? Like, what can we expect from that?
Well, I would say it's bigger than a traditional story. Yeah, like if you were to go through and play Loathsome for the first time and you got Asylum, and let's say it took you, I don't know how many hours do you know how many hours it took you to beat one of the stories? Few hours, right? Something like that.
I mean, it's like if you're going through casually, it'll take you like 1 to 2 hours, give or take. Very casually. If you're going like speeding through, it'll be like sub 1 hour, probably. I don't know.
Yeah,
it also depends on
really
the difficulty
because,
and what you get along the way, because you can get certain events that take longer to deal with. So, you know.
Yeah, it is. And it depends, like, if you're stuck on a puzzle, it depends on a lot of things.
Yeah.
So we've been conservative and said 3 to 5 hours to go through it. But I've had feedback from people playing, like, why did you say it's this short? Because I've already spent 8 hours. These are some of the people that are already playing right now. They're like, I've already played it like 8 hours. And I'm like, because somebody may not go into every nook and cranny.
Yeah,
somebody
that's the thing.
And maybe they do it in 3 hours or 2.5 hours and goes, they lied to it. I'm like, look, we're just going to be conservative. And there's more than that 3 to 5 hours worth of gameplay because there's lots of items for you to get and then the way things configure and this and that. And you want to
however long
alternate version.
However long you spend on the puzzles and stuff like that as well.
Exactly. But I think it's better for us to be conservative and just set expectations and say, this is what you get. And we believe that you're going to get more out of it because this happened in Remnant 1. It also happened in Remnant 2. People play the game, they're like, I don't get it. I played the game, I beat it in 11 hours or 8 hours, and that's it? And I'm like, well, we did a bad job letting you know that you've not seen half of the game. Like in Remnant 1 specifically, it's like, no, you are meant to play the game twice or 3 times. And I don't know if it's a novel concept, but it's definitely something that's not common where you beat, let's say Souls, Bloodborne, whatever, you beat it and you go, cool, I'll play it again because I liked the game a lot, but the experience doesn't change that much. Yes, you can change your weapon and you can change a couple of things, but it doesn't change it that much, right? Even if you decide to go all magic versus all melee, right? In our game, we're like, oh yeah, this is just a different story this time, right? You got a different story, you got a different boss, you got different side bosses, sometimes you got the same boss, you get different loot, right? Different puzzles. And I think in the first game, we definitely did a bad job letting people know, hey, you're not even close to half the game yet. But people would finish it and say, oh, 14 hours, I got everything. I'm like, there's no way you got everything in 14 hours. It's impossible.
It's impossible.
it takes like 80 or 90 hours knowing what you're doing to get, because like we had the play testers, our hardcore play testers that had played the game for a year. The game came out, we told them to delete all their saves. And they're like, I'm closing in on getting everything. And they know where everything is. 80 hours. It's like, it takes a while, even though that you know where everything is. So, but that's on us. That's we just got to represent that.
Specifically in the thing that the whole point was like, so you expect it to be slightly larger than your traditional Loathsome stuff that we have right now.
Yeah, a traditional Loathsome story, because Loathsome is split into 2 stories.
Yeah.
And we're making a 3rd story. So imagine, I equate it, I help people understand it through rewards. So in Loathsome, any biome, but let's just say Loathsome, there are approximately 35 rings and there are approximately 15 to 16 amulets. Okay. So what we did, so take those numbers and split them in half. So let's say 7.5 amulets now. And then I don't know, what's the half of the other one? 17 and a half rings. There's more than that for this biome to discover, right? There's more than 7.5 next, and there's more than, and it's spread out among the whole thing. So it is overall bigger I know I'm talking about rewards here, but it is overall bigger for you to explore and puzzles and tricks and all that stuff.
Yeah, and figure out the 2 ways to defeat the boss and whatnot. That'll be interesting.
And in the other secrets, right? There's always going to be some secrets that are like, okay, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do here, and let's talk to some friends. Let's go,
Is the archetype unlocking going to be secret as well, or is that going to be something that it just gets unlocked?
The archetype is secret, but it's not a hard secret. It's not. It would. I would probably say, besides Summoner, I was trying to think of all of the archetypes, because Summoner, you just walk up to
Summoner is easy because you see the book. Yeah,
you see it. Besides that one, it's probably the easiest to get in the game, right? Like it's not hard. Like it's probably akin in some ways to Alchemist. You don't have to get grabbed, but you know how Alchemist, you could stumble upon it. You're like, oh, I got grabbed. Oh, what's that? I killed the guy. What's that? And you got it. It's like akin to that level of difficulty, like the likelihood of you finding it. Just explore. But there are other things that are way hard to figure out. And that's up. So we swapped it around this time. We don't want to be like, not every archetype is going to be Archon. We're not going to be like, hey, by the way, if you have to be under a full moon on Tuesday, and it has to be a year ending in the number 2. You know what I'm saying? And you have to be wearing a hat to get the Archon. No, this one is like, hey, the Ritualist is our new thing. Find it, enjoy it, have fun, and good luck getting the other hard stuff.
Figure out how to get that Ritualist. I'm curious to jump in and try out the Ritualist, but personally, I'm gonna stick to Handler Engineer. I think it's just my jam. Handler and I think it's called Bonded Roughneck. That's me.
Bonded Roughneck. Yep, Bonded Roughneck. It was fun coming up with all of those names, because some of them you're like, how do you combine these 2 names together and have it make sense, right? And we were like, well, Roughneck, is Roughneck almost like an onomatopoeia pun, where we're like roughneck, but really an engineer like on an oil rig is a roughneck, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay, well, dogs are kind of rough. They also say rough. It was kind of a joke, but at the same time, we're like, I don't know, it fits. Just fit. Some of them fit, some of them don't.
So one of the things that you guys have implemented since we last spoke, which is something that I requested a lot during that podcast, I think, was loadouts.
Okay. We did it only because you requested it.
Of course. I mean, I know. I mean, of course, it's just like, it's that Rurikhan influence. I come in and I'm like, I want loadouts. Yeah, so the next thing, I want kunais for my dog.
Kunais for my dog. He throws the boomerang with his mouth.
Like Monster Hunter. Yeah, exactly.
Like Rise, baby. Well, any of the Monster Hunters.
No, but so how hard did that end up being to implement? Because I remember you said,
it's there's
some challenging stuff here.
The challenge with loadouts is time and resources, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't have a big team, and so when you do a feature like that, first of all, you have to get an engineer on the case, and it's usually one of our dedicated.
Does he have a Vulcan turret?
Who?
The engineer.
Oh, the engineer. No, I was like, he's not a roughneck. This guy's a programmer engineer. He's not a roughneck engineer.
Okay.
No doggable. But yeah, you have to get one of our gameplay engineers. And we don't have like a ton of them, right? Like, again, we're not that huge. And a lot of the gameplay engineers are working on, could be new content, it could be bugs, it could be optimization, it could be anything, right? The act of actually doing loadouts, getting them working is not hard. Overall, for I know I'm speaking on behalf of a program here, but we had the loadouts for a while. But you have to remember, like that, and it was all programmer art. And it was working. But then, now once that works, we have to find the bugs with it. And we actually found a bug. There was one where it was like undoing your fragments or something like that. Or there was some weird bug with it. I think we got fixed. It wasn't memorizing your fragments or your relics or something. And and it might have been client only or host. I can't remember. So you got to test that. But then you need UI. Then is there any sound involved? Then there's a ton of testing. Because we put the limit in that says you can't do it in combat. Originally, you could do it in combat. Now, think of all the problems that would cause.
Jesus
Where you're
Christ.
like, I'm going to split everything, right? So
Yeah, because you would want to swap mid combat. You're like, okay, so for this phase I'll be this thing, and then for the other phase I'll do this thing with this different set of traits.
And I very specifically said, look, let's limit it to out of combat only, because I think players will understand that swapping 15 items on the press of a button in the middle of a fight is a little weird, right? Like I know, like we were even a long time ago, we were going to say you couldn't swap gear at all while you had aggro on you, right? So you couldn't be like in a fight and you would be like, oh, I'm going to switch to my enemy has less than 50% health ring, and you can. But people do that and they find that as a skill, that's fine. But having a one button solution to that. But anyway, the point is, it wasn't that hard. It's time and resources.
I remember when people started doing that in the original Dark Souls, and it was like, holy crap. So people would, they would use like something to parry, and then they would swap into a big meaty mace and two-handed.
And Elden Ring as well.
Boom.
Elden Ring as well, yep.
They do the friggin' item swaps, and I was like, bro, I can't do that. It's not happening.
Absolutely. So it's one of those things that we knew that we wanted from the beginning, but even just, there's a lot of stuff that we still want. I don't know why my nose is itching. This is so annoying.
It's normal. Like, I get that as well.
It's like raining outside, so it's like it might be allergies or something. But yeah, it's we know people want things like hide backpack, but and that's an easy suggestion to make, right? And I'm not hating on anybody for suggesting that, but they go, make it so I can hide backpacks. I'm like, okay, well, where will the weapons be stowed, right? Because right now they're all attached to the backpack. If you hide the backpack, they float. And they go, okay, well, hide the weapons. I'm like, okay, well, we could do that, but then that causes other issues.
You start losing immersion and whatnot, and I agree. Yeah,
Thank you. Oh, my wife gave me a tissue. And so there's issues like that where they're not big issues. They're just things you have to think about in addition to all the other things you're thinking.
Because
about. They're good suggestions, right? We know, like when we made 144 rings, we're like, oh yeah, we're gonna need some loadouts up in that thing. You know what I'm saying? We totally get it. It's
a good thing that you bring up the rings, because it's the perfect segue. Because see, since I asked loadouts last time and we got those,
now it's item search. Is it item search?
It's not even item search, because filter? I think that items, kind of like a filter. I think it would be not too hard potentially to just do something be like offensive rings, defensive rings, rings for skill, rings for mod. Just have like a tab on top.
Here's the thing. It's not hard to do.
But it takes time.
It's time and resources, right? So, because remember, you have 144 rings. I already told you that we had more rings than the default story. So let's say it's already over 17 or 20, right? Okay, so now we have about 165 rings. Okay, what are the categories? Right? Now, what is an offensive ring? Like, what if a ring has offense and defense? Okay, well, that'll have the tag of offensive and defensive. Okay, cool. So half of the rings in the game are offensive. So I click offensive, and you're like, okay, well, you narrowed it down from 165 to 80, and you're like, I still can't see this. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to do mod. You got to do mod. You got to do mod gen. You got to do...
No. I don't think you should do mod gen. I think it should just be like mod.
Mod related, yeah.
Anything
but then what about like every status? You got to do status, but then you go, I want to make bleed builds. I'm going to show everything that shows bleed, fire, whatever. Yeah. Again, this is not hard. I'm just saying there's a lot of steps to do something like that.
Do you guys have plans to deal with that stuff? Because like that's one of the issues that I run into now.
It's one of those things that we put on the list in terms of we know players would really like to do this. I will say also, and I've joked about this internally, where I'm like, we gave the players too much. And this is not an offense. This is not taking offense to the players. I'm like, God dang, we gave them way too many tools, right? Why did we do this? And it makes it harder for us to do that, right? Because
there are so many times I'm like, okay, because I'm constantly rethinking my build, right? Because we're prepared. Me and my friends are preparing for the DLC, and I'm like, okay, I want to do this, and I want to prepare. And so I'll just be scrolling through the rings, ring by ring, reading all.
Trust me, I know. Like somebody suggested on Reddit the other day, they're like, open up the wiki and then just type in fire, and you'll see all the fire rings. And I'm like, I'm gonna do that, man, because I don't even know how many rings we have. But I will tell you, this has come up too. If you compare. And this is not slighting any game. This is just a comparison in terms of some issues that it causes. If you look up Elden Ring. I believe Elden Ring has approximately 90 artifacts, or whatever they're called them, trinkets. I can't remember what they're called, but approximately 90. About a third or a quarter of those are duplicates, meaning +1, +2, right? Of the same thing. So that cuts your number down to about 50, 45, 50 that you have to remember. And that's a much easier amount to remember than 144 or 160, right?
Yeah.
Because ours are all bespoke. We don't have +1, +2, nothing like that. Now, there are a couple where you could go, oh, that's just a better version of that. And that's an oversight on our part, and we'll try to fix that. And Elden Ring is a massive game, but quote unquote only has 45 to 50 uniques, right? Now, they have crazy amounts of weapons, crazy amounts of weapon arts, weapons in general, consumables. They have all of those things, don't get me wrong. And so we laugh where we go, man, we should just make it so you go through a dungeon and you get a leaf. You just get a magical leaf. I don't know what it does, but it's not something equipable. Maybe it's a crafting material, right? Because you'll go through a game like Lords, you'll go through a game like Elden Ring Souls, and you'll get a slab, a guaranteed slab in that dungeon. You'll be like, it was worth going through this dungeon. But it's really just a crafting material. And that means that's one less ring they had to make. One less amulet. One less. But we have rings, amulets, relics, fragments, guns, mods, mutators. So sometimes we just sit there and we're like, okay, we made.
It's too much.
It's too much. It's too much, right? It's like too much of a good thing is, it's they say you can never have enough, but.
I'm actually curious, with all of these options that we have in Remnant 2, you guys have also done something wherein now we can just respec for free. Before we had to spend 2,500 scrap every time, whatever. Now it's just like, no, your item to respec is just permanent. You just have it and you can just use it whenever you want. Like, where do you stand on like the philosophies of respecing in a video game and stuff like that in general?
Well, clearly we're at the point of we don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, more in depth, I would say Remnant progression system was always designed with builds in mind, right? Yeah. We always wanted you to, like you said, you're looking through and trying to figure out your best build, and you got to a point where you're like, Roughneck is my favorite, right? Handler and Engineer, this is my favorite. I love this more than anything. Maybe there's an archetype that comes out down the line, or maybe there's an archetype that you find that you're like, wait a minute. I'm going to try this instead of Engineer, or I'm going to try this instead of Dog. Whatever. We don't want it to be too painful for you to have to switch that. In fact, we want you to have access to these builds, but we also want reasons for you to use those builds as well. So, and that's something we're exploring in the future. Like, do we make a new mode where maybe somebody like yourself that likes Handler, Engineer goes, either A, I can't have this all the time, or B, this is not the ideal way. I have a better solution. I found a solution for this challenge that's being put in front of me.
I kind of feel like you're already there, to be honest, because like I play that build because it's what I like the most. Sure. But I've already been in situations where I'm like, this ain't it. Like particularly the Shala boss, where I even told you that I was doing it in Apocalypse with a friend, and it's like, no, I'm going Dog Alki, so that I have the extra res, and
that's what we want.
Yeah, so I think you're already there when it comes to that. It was more just like, what do you think about respecing in general? Because like, there's a lot of video games where they, like for instance, Lies of P, right? They hid the respec until like you're
behind the tree,
deep into the game. Before
it's like it's about what, halfway or give or take.
No, it was more than halfway because it wasn't just a tree. I think they changed it to where it's just the tree, but before that, you had to go all the way to like Victor, which is the wrestler guy.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Only then you could respec. So it took a significantly longer amount of time, and I always have these conversations with my chat where I'll go like, oh, I think that if a game's going to have respec, they should make it available sooner, not instantly out the gate, fine, whatever, but like sooner rather than later. Because there's no real reason to kind of like hold back respec from players.
Well, I would say my philosophy would be, I don't care when they respec. And honestly, I mean, I like if you can get your orb from what's his name, it's not that expensive, right? Yeah. And I think if we did it again, if we went back and looked at the systems again, we would maybe even make it even easier than it was. Or than it is now, right? Where it's like, yeah, you could just respec. Although I would say there is a little bit, I don't want, not pushback. What's the word? There's probably a little bit of a desire to say, okay, well, play the game for a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit until you decide, I wish I had this, or I wish I could do this instead. We don't want you to be in the position of Remnant 1 where you had to beat the game to get your first orb, and then the vendor sold orbs forever. You had to beat the whole game. What that does is it creates a situation where nobody wants to spend their talent points. Yeah. Where you're like, no, I'm not going to put a talent point in anything because I don't know if I'm going to need it or not. It's the same thing that happens in Resident Evil 4, where it's like, oh, I got the rocket launcher and I can one-shot any boss, but I'm not going to use it because I might need it, and then I never use it, right? Yeah. And it's just weird. So I think the method that we did in Remnant 2, even retail launch before we patched it, was pretty forgiving because it was only, I think it was what, 5,000 at first to get the respec token, then we moved it to 2,500.
Yeah, I think it was 5,000. Yeah.
And now it's just as long as you own it. It's almost like having a Paragon tree and you put a point into that, and it's like, now you can respec anytime you want. It's kind of like that at that point. We don't mind as long as you use your build for a little bit, right?
Yeah,
just a little bit. So
it's the reason I'm asking is because sometimes like one of the answers that I got from my chat is like, well, if you were to prepare because like Lords was also not easy to respec early on, if I remember correctly. No, actually,
well, Lords, you had to get the little, you had to get the
orb, but
thing or whatever.
But for whatever reason, I couldn't figure that out at the start, so I didn't know how to respec. And I remember somebody in chat telling me like, well, if you did a little bit of research, you wouldn't have to respec. And I was like, I'm playing the game early. Like, what am I going to research?
Well. To me,
am I going to look at a wiki?
This is my problem. And I say problem, it comes off negative when you say my problem. This is also, let me say challenge. I'll use some better words. This is the challenge for me playing a game like Path of Exile. It's awesome. Like, the amount of builds in that game are crazy. But it's very hard to play the game with no information. Yeah. Now, that may sound very weird to say. Like, I can't play this game without information. I can play Tetris without information. They're not the same game. I'm not going to be. Dev compares Path of Exile to Tetris, and says Path sucks. No, I'm not saying that. But what I mean? I'm saying like there's degrees over time where it's like, okay, I'm playing Souls, and I know that if I put points into this, cool, I'm leveling up. Is this the right stat? I don't know, but it's not hurting me that much if I pick the wrong stat. You can clearly make a bad build, but I can fix it. Path, especially a while ago, was really hard. You're like, dude, if you don't play with a guide, you are severely handicapping yourself and getting those. I forgot the name of the respec little points that you could get. It's like, it took a while. Now, I think they've since made it easier to get those, right? We didn't want to make a game that felt like you had to play with a guide. But the irony of that is there are some secrets in the game that you really have to, take your time to figure out or play with a guide. Like, I get it, but we want to make sure that you can shoot and melee and do all the things that you want to do without having to research, a novel of information. Now, there's going to be people that min-max, right? There's going to be people that go on Reddit or Discord and say, oh, no. I've done the math, and if you don't use this neck with this trinket and this gun, you're severely handicapping yourself. But the game can be played without perfectly min-maxing. And to be fair, so can Path. But Path, you look at that tree and you're like, if I miss one thing, I fucked up my whole bit. You know what I mean? You're like, no. So...
But it's actually interesting that you bring that up because I was going to ask you about this immediately after, which is like the whole thing about people min-maxing the crap out of their builds. Like, where do you stand on that? Particularly like there's a specific healer build that you can make right now where you
Resonating Heart?
Yeah, the Resonating Heart. The video that I first saw that build in, because we're actually trying to figure out some synergies for a healing build, they called it the Root Doctor. And I was like, holy crap. When we started using that, we're just like, bro, this is broken. Like, where do you stand on that? I'm assuming you've seen that build.
Oh, of course. I mean, we made Resonating Heart to work the way that it does. There was a bug where it was double dipping on the healing, where it's like you would heal, and if you had triage and you were getting 50% more heal, the initial heal would be 50%. Therefore, when you healed, you overhealed, you'd be getting 150% healing. That's fine. But then when it took that 150% overheal amount, it would add 50% to that, right? And so we're like, okay, well, that was a bug. But we wanted people to do that, right, in a way. There's I don't even want to say a fine line. There's a rough line between this is super fun and I'm enjoying it, and I felt like I made a build that has benefited myself or the team by using my deduction abilities of reading, putting builds together or using a guide. And then the other side of the line is, well, this trivializes everything ever. And all we really want to do is make sure things don't trivialize things too much. You know what I mean? Because we were talking about this, your hardcore run, and you had the doctor, and then your doctor died, and you were like, we might fail this on the last boss at the last second, right? Where it was like, heal, I can't heal. It's the funniest thing ever. I was busting up laughing. But it's like, so it didn't trivialize things. It did make them very easy, but at that easier.
Yeah.
But it did give somebody a role. They were the root doctor, or they were the healer. And then that means the other players on the team can be, I'm going to be the buffer. I'm going to be the damage guy. I'm going to be this guy. I'm going to be the reviver.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the totally fine with that. And I hope people will see over time that we don't particularly like to nerf things to the ground ever. We like to make what we believe are fair changes to things. So one of the big things was bright steel ring became dull steel ring, and people are like, "Oh, bright steel ring." For people that don't know,
I don't even know what that one does, to be honest.
Okay, so bright steel ring was a play on Darkwood Grain Ring from Dark Souls.
Oh, okay.
So Darkwood, so that gave you the flip roll, right? Gave you the best roll. Now in Remnant, it was in Remnant 1. It wasn't an issue, so to speak, because armor had skills on them. And so you would have to play the armor set that you wanted to get the skill that you wanted. We since moved those to mutators, right? Excuse me. So that meant people were more likely to wear heavy armor in Remnant 2. And because of that, they would wear bright steel ring, which would give them the lightest roll, right? The problem became that ended up being very, very strong overall.
Yeah, you just get too defensive because you don't take that much damage and you're rolling super fast. And
it only costs you one ring. In Remnant 1, it was half of your ring slots, right? Or 1 out of 3 trinkets. And this one, it's 1 out of 5. And the power was just too strong. So what we did is we changed it to say it moves you down 1 weight threshold, right? So if you're an ultra heavy, it moves you to heavy, right? If you're in medium, it moves you to light. And we felt that was a fair change. And now, of course, some people, not everybody, were saying, "Oh, they've ruined it. They nerfed it to the ground." And then, like a week later, people were like, "Oh no, if you have
still
strong
broken.
back, which it's like it's giving you, if you use strong back, which is giving you 15 threshold increase, so you can take your 75. What is it? What armor is it? You can take your, I think it's 65 armor from Challenger. It puts you into 50, and then you can wear the bright steel ring for 1 out of 5 trinket slots and put you into light. I'm like, you haven't lost anything.
Because I personally think that you were saying like stuff trivializing things. I think that the doctor build does trivialize. Like for instance, Annihilation and Apocalypse. We just took 2 doctor builds.
Sure.
We just took 2 of them, and then we had somebody else that was dealing damage, and that's it.
But here's the question, though.
We just trivialized it.
I guess the question is, how many times have you fought that boss? And then did you not prepare for that, right? Like,
oh yeah,
like
but
that's what I'm saying, right? Like you again, there is a line. Like, we don't want you to be like, "Oh, I just pressed the win button." But if you are using your smarts, your intelligence, your deduction abilities with your friends' reasoning to figure out like, "Oh, if I put these things together, it's going to make it a lot easier for us."
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so the only place that I think we would adjust that would say, let's make sure the healing isn't double dipping. Let's look at the duration of how much overhealing they get, and for how long.
Yeah. And
then we'll go from there. But we're never going to say Resonating Heart no longer overheal. Like, we're not going to do that, right? Yeah. Because we want Resonating Heart still to be good. One of the problems is, as somebody that does balancing, is that any negative change is often regarded as nerf to the ground. And you're like, because we adjusted armor. I put armor on a better scale where it like ramps up gradually, but the efficiency ramps down. So like light armor, it gives you something like 2.5 armor per weight per weight point, and the heaviest armor gives you like 1.85 armor per weight, right? So it's less efficient, but overall it's still massive armor, right? So like people were looking at it going, oh, my Leidos Mark II, it's giving me 5% less armor at the max level. And I'm like, it's still giving you 48% armor for just wearing this. Are you losing anything? Now that combined with the change to Bright Steel Ring made people think it's in there. But like a week later, people were like, yeah, I think it's fine.
I don't even use any of that stuff, and I've beaten the game in Apocalypse and beaten the game in Hardcore, and it's like it's whatever.
Well, that happened to Enigma too. Another example is Enigma. We made a patch. We say, I lowered the base damage of Enigma. I adjusted the tether rate. And then people are like, oh my God, they nerfed it to the ground. Cut to a week later, Enigma is still the best handgun in the game. And I'm like, I know we don't nerf anything to the ground. We don't we're just trying to bring it closer. And that's the thing. If everything on average, as a whole, is quote unquote fun. Let's say on average it's fun and decent. And then there are a few things that are weak that aren't useful or that are less desirable. And there are a few things that are at the top that are way too desirable. The game is balanced for that middle ground. Yeah. That's the average. So if you made everything, because people go, just buff, it's a PvE game. If you made everything that
but that's not fun.
You have to rebalance the entire game.
Yeah.
And then you've brought everything back down again. But if I have 2 or 3 things that are up here at like a 10 out of 10, everything's a 5. And I don't mean 5 out of 5 of good. I just mean on average on the scale. And I bring those top things down to a 7. They're still amazing. And then I bring the few weak things up to 4 or 5 or even 6 in some cases. The average has generally stayed the same. On average, they've stayed the same. But people see the top thing and go, oh, these guys hate fun. And I'm like, no, we don't hate fun. We're trying to make more things available to you.
I think with the amount of builds that I've seen that are just like extremely powerful, and the fact that I was able to I created quite a few builds that I was like, man, this feels very powerful. Like the Merciless gun, which I initially didn't even like that much. Yeah. I made like this build with the Energized Coil, whatever it's called, that does
Energized Net Coil, yep. Which is getting some updates soon, but yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it made some AoE explosions, and we put Twisting Wounds on Merciless, so you get 1 bleed from the gun, 1 bleed from the thing, plus another bleed from the dog.
Yep.
And it's like, it's just the AoE is constantly popping off, and then I'm like, okay, and now Enigma, and more AoEs just spreading all over the place. It felt good, and it's not like a super powerful build, but it felt like a really effective way to play the game, and I just ran into it organically.
That's fine.
Yeah,
that's fine. I mean, well, this is a little bit about the DLC, but the DLC is status based.
There's
a lot of status. It's about pain and suffering, ritualist, and that. There's some guns that have some statuses and stuff like that. And there are more trinkets that are status based. So when we make these trinkets, these items, we look at them and go, what is missing for players? Like what?
I'll tell you what's missing: a long gun that deals explosive damage with its base shots.
Long gun. Let's see.
Long gun explosive damage.
Long gun explosive damage.
Yeah, you don't have one.
Damn, you don't like a short handgun that has explosive
damage.
No,
I love it, but I also I love it, but I also want a long gun because I just want explosions. You know, because I'm a Gunlance main and Monster Hunter. I want explosions.
That's true. I'm trying to think though, like we definitely keep that in mind when we're doing new guns, where we say like, because we added the spreader type weapon, like they spread fire or corrosion or
like
overload. We added those as
fire, whatever it's called. Yeah.
Because we only had Hellfire. Witchfire is a mod, but yeah, we had, and it's a really cool game only on Epic Game Store. But anyway, unrelated, which I've also played this year, which I totally forgot about. Only in beta though, or early access. But we added those because we wanted people to have more access to status in their offhand or just in general and guns. And then when we were a little bit more, I don't want to say reluctant, but guarded in making too many statuses on primary guns. You can get it on Savior, you can get it on Merciless, you can get it on, how many more long guns have not many, right?
Yeah,
if you don't have a mod. If you don't have a mod, right? So the idea was that you'd have to do a mod to get that. Now, here's another question. Here's a question. What if we added explosive rounds, right? And it just it was like hot shot, but it converted all your shots to explosive damage. That would be over 20 guns that now have explosive primary shots.
That would be nice. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. Yeah, explosive shots. I mean, I actually
get my notepad out. It's like
the last build that I did is actually using the basic shot mods, actually, like with defrag,
like overflow or whatever. Oh, I got
defrag and the shock one, I think, is overflow. Yeah, I was using those two because it's like, okay, here's what I want to do. I just want to. A friend of mine told me I wasn't aware that when you use the shot mods, it reloads the gun. I didn't know, so I was just going like,
feature from Remnant 2.
I'm gonna go, Chicago typewriter, brrr, reload,
yep,
and then swap to and I'll just unload 2 guns twice.
I'll tell you something funny. In test, before we launched, they used to give you infinite reserve ammo. And the problem is that they became so powerful, right? They were like by far the best mods because Remnant 1, they didn't do any of that. And then in test, they gave you infinite reserve ammo. But that kind of like reduced the design space a little bit because we try not to make anything do too many things at once, if that makes sense, right? Because if you make a ring that does 5 things, then you could have made 5 rings. Now, that's required in our game because we try to reward you with something tangible for doing something instead of like only a crafting material or only a whatever, right? Yeah. But that causes an issue where, now I need to be able to search my rings because there's 7,000 rings in the game.
By the way, I expect to see some skill damage rings in this next expansion. Severely lacking.
Skill damage rings.
They don't exist.
They
don't. No.
Well, what about all damage? That counts as skill damage.
Yeah, I'll take that. I mean,
look at this.
I'm already using Bird of the Destroyer.
You ever see?
You've become an angel.
Yeah, you ever see Pulp Fiction when he opens the case and it's like gold inside? I'm like, let me open my checklist of all the items in the new DLC. Oh, like, that's super funny. Hold on, I know it's really bright. Yeah, there is a ring that gives you just pure skill damage.
Good.
See,
I knew it would have to be coming because there's mod damage and there's all damage, but there's not skill damage. So I was like, I know from my last video that I recorded with him that he said they're looking for stuff they don't have. So there's going to be a skill damage, like 100%.
Yeah, and there'll be stuff we missed this time too, where it's like, and sometimes it's missed because we forgot. Sometimes it's missed because we didn't have room, right? Because we try to do so. It's kind of a loose philosophy, but it's add stuff where there are holes, but also don't forget to make some weird stuff. Got to have a few weird ones, right?
You need weird things, yeah.
There's just weird ones. Like if you play something like Liza P, where they have a reduced amount of trinkets, but they're all very impactful, like in the way that they do it, you're like, okay, cool. But you and this isn't a slight on Liza P. I've finished it. I got 2 endings with it so far. Got to go back and 100% it. You're very rarely going to get a ring, if ever, that says, like during a blood moon on a Tuesday with the year ending will now cause explosions on enemies that are, and okay, that's a little bit too much, right? But we try to make a few weird ones like that, right? We have a ring coming that, another exclusive, Rurikhan exclusive here. We have a ring that just makes you bleed. Just makes you as a player bleed. And you're like, well, why would I want that? But there are reasons for you to want that.
There's stuff.
There are reasons for you to want that. But
there's already stuff in the game. I know. And there's probably going to be even more, I'm assuming, with DLC, yeah.
But all it does is it bleeds you. It does nothing else. And some people will look at it and they go, that's the dumbest ring ever. Why would I want that? Yeah. Why would I want to bleed all the time? And then you go, okay, well, there are things that say if an entity is bleeding, not an enemy, if an entity, and an entity is an enemy,
anybody,
you, ally, dog, turret, anything. And then you're like, well, I count as an entity. Oh, so if an entity is bleeding, now get this. So now you're bleeding, but now it's being nullified by the heal because you say if an entity is bleeding near you. So that's nullified, and then you know what I mean? And then, but that's just a weird ring. Like 99% of people will look and go, that's the dumbest. Why would they make this? And then there's 1% of 1% of people, which is funny. I mean, it's kind 1% of 1%. It's still like 20,000 people or whatever.
It's kind of like the you guys already have a ring that's like you take 100 or 200% more damage, but you deal 10% more damage.
Yeah, that one was that one was okay. So that was that Ring of the Admiral. It used to be higher. So when Remnant 1 came out, Admiral Baru, streamer, he was the first person that we know of to beat the game on stream starting from Nightmare, right? Starting from the hardest difficulty, which it was not meant to be played on Nightmare from level 1. And we have since tuned Remnant 2 down just a little bit. But it was brutal. It was meant to be, you have like 200, 300 trade points. And he did it. It took him a while. And I was in his stream talking to him, and I'm like, if you complete this, I'll make a ring for you. And he was joking about one of the developers, not me, but one of the developers told us it was literally impossible. It was not literally impossible. You can beat every challenge in Remnant as long as you don't get hit if you have enough ammo. Nothing is impossible, right? Within reason. There's places where you do take damage, but whatever. And so that became a meme. Literally impossible. Literally impossible. So then I made Ring of the Admiral after he did it. And I told him, if you beat this, I'll make you a ring, and I'll give you what was the joke? It was something about, I'll give you a $2 coupon from CVS, right? Like something worthless, right? So if you look at the lore, especially in Remnant 1, it says a worthless trinket that looks like it's worth no more than $2 at a 5 and dime or something like that. And then it has the inscription, literally impossible. So we made it for him. In Remnant 2, we changed the text to say, like, this ring was made for somebody that really likes challenges or like making life harder for themselves. And it says, it's very unlikely it was actually a real admiral or something like that, right? But it's just a call out. We make community rings for people. There was Xania's Malice. There was Anastasia's Inspiration. We make those for people that...
Oh, yeah, that's the haste ring. I remember that one.
Yeah, it's the haste ring. And it's all art themed. And she's actually German, and there's a quote inside the ring that comes from a German painter. Nobody would ever know that unless you tell them. But that quote is attributed to a German painter. So it's like they all have these themes, right? So we had Vulcan's detonator in Remnant 1 because Vulcan was a very, very, very small creator at the time. And he just went in on Remnant. And we're like, oh, what a cool
and now
thing.
And now you have the Vulcan turret.
Well, now there's a Vulcan turret, but in the game it said this is sometimes spelt with a K because that's how he spelt his name. But yeah, we just try to do stuff for those people. But we also, like I said, we try to make weird things. We have the one-eyed Joker ring, which or neck where you idle, where you backdash and it puts a playing card in front of you, and if the card takes damage and you crit, it's just weird. Like,
yeah,
some people like it, some people hate it, some people go, oh, this thing is useless. Some people go, this is the funnest thing.
Yeah, but it's important to have that type of flavor. It gives the game flavor, I feel like. Yeah.
Yeah. And and there's other ways to do stuff. Like in a game like Liza P, you can get some of your personality with your weapon that you make, your creation. So you don't have to worry about the rings quite as much, right? Or your P organs. Maybe one of the best named mechanics of all time.
The P organ.
I don't know, man. But it's funny. Yeah, so that's kind of what we look at. And when we're making a list of things, let's say we're going to add 10 items or 20 items or 30 items. We say, well, let's make a small percent of them fun and weird. Let's make a good percentage of them something that we're missing. Let's make another percent of those something that players haven't asked for, but they will go, oh, I love this. You know what I mean? Like we try to think of that kind of stuff. So
I recently went through and I did a hardcore run, which by the time this airs, there'll probably already be a video of highlights of that run. You've already seen a small part of it.
I saw the end. Well, I watched a lot of it. Yeah.
So it was very interesting to go through the game in hardcore. Like, did you guys specifically balance stuff around hardcore? Or did you just like, no, let's just add in this mode where if you play it like this, you die and it's whatever?
The combat team works is if the boss designer cannot beat their boss no hit, then it's not complete.
Oh, no hit.
You have to be able to beat your own boss because you know the boss more than anybody.
Yeah.
You have to be able to beat the boss without taking any damage. It's very hard in some cases. Very, very hard. But that means that the designer of Annihilation, Maurice, he can beat Annihilation without taking any damage, which a lot of people have done at this point, right?
I don't like this gentleman. I'm
just saying, like, same thing for be it Bloat King, which it just throws stuff at you all the time. He in fact designed that boss as well. You have to be able to beat that boss without taking damage for it to be considered quote unquote finish.
See, I'm sensing a pattern here. I think that Maurice is not a dog person.
He's not a dog person.
He's not.
Well, the dog can take damage. But that's how it is, right? And it may be hard, but that's kind of the thing, because then when we make a hardcore, we know it's literally possible for you to do it without the dog, without Challenger, without Alchemist.
Because the developer
we know it's possible. Because Quinn, the guy that designed the Q Boss, also designed Nightweaver, also designed Custodian Eye, a couple others. He can beat all of those without taking damage. And that's also using the lever action, the base lever action, and the base pistol with no mods. Like they don't have to do it like that, but they do it like that because that's the starting equipment when you load the editor. You just get the base equipment. And that's how they test the bosses at first. And if you can't do it, then you got to go back to the drawing board and clean it up a little bit. So we don't balance hardcore around it at all. We in fact just say, well, we know all of these can be beaten without taking damage. And then on the progression side, we give you a lot of tools to take more damage or to revive or to whatever. Now, can't help you on Q Boss. That's when you have to learn. But that is a boss that you can just learn. Like you can walk into Q Boss in that 4x4 area or 2x2 area and just walk in circles for an hour if you want and not die, right? That's up to you though. Boss is kind of designed for you to panic.
With the way that we dealt with that boss is like we just had somebody sit outside. Like, I'm curious where do you sit on that? Like, do you think that that's a valid strategy, or because like technically speaking, you can do that on more bosses. We didn't.
We did that on every boss.
Yeah, you can.
Our hardcore is not like the hardest core, right? Like our hardcore is not like we know that's possible because we made sure that if you and I are playing and you get knocked down or die, as long as I make it to the World Stone, I can revive you. Yeah. We live and die together. It's a hardcore where the team lives or dies together, not individual. If you're playing Diablo, Path, whatever the other game is, and of course you're not alt F4ing or whatever.
Yeah.
If you
I considered it in Annihilation. I was like, okay.
But like, think about it like this though. If we're in a team, you and I, and we have a third person, and the two people die, you are invested in me surviving, right? You're like, you could do it. You could do it. You could bring us back to life.
Yeah.
In Diablo, if you died, I'm like, well,
he's gone.
Have fun leveling back up to 60 or 50 or whatever. And again, that's there's nothing wrong with that. That's just a different style of game. But our game is overall less punishing than those. Our hardcore is less punishing. Yes, if you die solo, you die solo.
Yeah,
and there was a funny exploit where you could actually, it might still be in the game, but it's getting patched out. You could go to your dead character, and you could highlight your dead character. No, you highlight a living character. You click play, and you immediately move to your dead character, and it'll revive your dead character. I'm like, that's just funny. We fixed it, but like when you die, you don't lose. There's no souls. You don't lose your money. You just lose time. You just lose time and a little bit of ego. You're like, oh man, I thought I had that. But it's that's like, about it, right?
The hardcore run was one of the best co-op experiences I've ever had, specifically because of that aspect that you bring up, where it's just like it's the three of you and you guys are in it together, and there is that sense. Like for instance, I died at the Red Prince because I only ever had over 150 hours of Remnant 2 that I've played before the hardcore run, I only ever had the Red Prince show up for me once.
Okay. So you weren't ready.
So I had nothing. And so we jump into the Red Prince, and I fell down to the lower area just as the fire is happening. And I'm like, I see fire above me, and I'm like, I better stay down here. And then the fire comes in, takes me out. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
And then it's my two friends up there. They're like cursed at half health because we didn't take curse rings. They're cursed at half health, and just like, it was brutal, but it was fantastic at the same time because it creates those moments of tension that were really, really cool.
Well, here's another thing though. Think about this. When you were talking about this or that trivialized the game or trivialized our mode. Like you also played on Survivor, or do you play on Veteran?
We played on Veteran for the hardcore run because
so you played on Veteran because there's a reward for that, right?
Yeah, there's rewards. Otherwise, let me be clear. Otherwise, would have played Survivor,
and that's fine. And here's the thing. Like again, our hardcore is not that punishing. Like if you play Survivor and you know the game pretty well, it's very unlikely that you're going to die if you have any kind of semi-decent build, unless you get clipped by the Q boss or you walk off a ledge somewhere, right? Like. That happens. If you played on Nightmare, you might not think that the Root Doctor trivializes things quite as much. If you play Apocalypse, you might not be like, okay, well, maybe it doesn't trivialize. No, see, but there's always going to be some things.
That's the thing. I told the Root Doctor thing. It was an Apocalypse difficulty. We used it to trivialize Annihilation.
Oh, yeah, I gotcha. I thought you were talking on hardcore.
No,
you're right.
On hardcore, we tried it, and we even farmed for it, too. So we did everything up to Annihilation, and then we're like, okay, now stop, because we knew that things were going to go rough with Annihilation. And so we get there, and we're like, okay, now we go farm for the Root Doctor build. And we farmed, and we build him up, and the second we get to the second phase, just walks off.
He died. It was so fun. I was laughing when I saw it.
Wait until you see the actual edited version of that.
Oh man, I can't wait. So in that case, if even then you almost wiped, you guys almost died on the last.
Oh yeah.
Now yes, I'm sure it helped. And all we need to do from the balance side is look at it and go, is it truly trivializing it? Is it a bug that's causing it to double heal? Is it this and that? What's happening? Or are we kind of like, hey, you had a lot of fun doing it?
Oh, it was a blast.
Because I always want to reiterate this. People think that when we nerf stuff, especially the Steam forums, these guys hate fun. They don't like people playing how they want to play. I'm like, no. We want you to play how you want to play. We just want to fix the bugs that make it to where that's the only way to play. And you feel like you're weak. Like there might be a person out there that loves DPS, loves weak spots, loves crit. And they look at the Root Doctor build and go, I would never play that. I don't care. And to me, and I'm speaking for this imaginary person, for me, I feel like having the Hugs build, Hunter Gunslinger, is trivializing the game because I'm weak spotting and I'm so good at aim. But let's say, for example, you're not good at weak spotting and you just like explosives. You might make a build that's all explosives, and you're like, I feel like Meridian is trivializing the game. And you're like, okay, well, now we've trivialized the game 3 different ways. Like, is it really, or is that just how it is, right? Because if we nerf one thing, now you're like, oh, now only these other 2 ways are. There's a line somewhere, and we're not esports. We're never gonna. We don't. Everything doesn't have to be a perfect. If you look at our rings, 99% of our rings and trinkets and buffs are always in 5s because they're just easy to remember. Right? 5%, 10%, 20%. They're just easy to remember. There's a few cases where it's like, okay, we only want this to go up to 12. We only want this to go up to whatever. But generally speaking, it's always in 5s because it's just easy to remember. And yes, somebody could sit down there and do the math and go, this one is way better because this multiple of 5 is 2% better than this other combination of 5. You know what I mean? Like, we don't care that much. Yeah. As long as it's fun, right?
It was definitely fun. It was an absolute blast. Like the hardcore run was amazing. The Apocalypse run was a bit of a struggle, but we got through that one as well. So
it's painful.
It's
Were you guys level 20 when you did it? Or were you like
when we did what?
Or did you start from level 1 on Apocalypse? Or did you
start No. We started with our characters. Like going level 1 on Apocalypse, that'd be insane.
I mean, it is insane, but people do it because it's just another way to make the game harder. You know?
Oh yeah, it's definitely possible, and you can definitely like work towards it. But it's like I'm getting too old for those types of things.
I wanted to make in Remnant 1. I wanted to make another difficulty after Apocalypse called Soul Crushing, and the idea was that it was just going to be like there's a Remnant mod called Remnant Hell from Hell mod, and we were gonna. This is before that came out. We were like, we should make one called either Hell or Soul Crushing. And it's just pure pain. And to pick it, you would have to go through a pop-up that says, look,
yeah,
we know you like challenges. This is not going to be fun. It's going to be painful.
You just need to say, it's not going to be fair. You should just say, it's not
going to be fair. It is not fair. Like we joked about this and we were like, we should do this. Where it's like, it's going to be pure pain. You're going to get killed by the silliest things. Do you accept? And then you're like, accept. And then another pop-up comes up. Look, I just want to be sure. Are you sure? Because this is going to be, you're going to walk in and get steamrolled by a deer and die. And you're going to be like, this is the most BS thing I've ever played. It's called Soul Crush. And we're like, should we do that? I don't know.
We had one of our very close things that almost ended the hardcore run. Was actually like a super simple elite enemy from Neyrud. One of those flies that shoots out purple goop.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
It just instantly murdered my 2 friends. And as I was trying to figure out,
that's funny.
How do they die? I'm moving slightly away from them and healing to be safe. And then I move back in to go res them, and it shoots one of those purple things at me, and it kills me. And I was like, "Oh man!" And then in comes the dog to save save the MVP, whole run.
MVP.
That was the reason I was playing handler. I was like, "Listen, there's going to be a time when we're all going to die, and the dog's going to come in. He's going to save the day." And that was the time.
The funny thing about the dog is that a lot of people look at it and say, "Well, it's basically useless on flying enemies." Or it's not good versus this, or it's got a lot of weaknesses. And I'm like, yeah, but it still does a thing. It still does some stuff that nobody else does.
Like, and here's the thing. It's not useless because you can get for 20 seconds 20% damage reduction or 20% damage bonus.
Or healing for everybody.
Heal.
Yep.
So it's like, it's not useless. The thing that, I just want him to be able to auto attack. He doesn't deal that much damage anyway.
Well, trust me, we joke, but early in development, I was like, could we just have a little turret on his back like McCabe made it? And he would go like this, and he would go, right? Where we're like, is that too comical, right? And we did talk about it. We thought it would be funny. But
oh, damn.
I don't know.
He's so good. A kunai.
Little dog turret.
A kunai. He's a ninja dog. He throws kunai.
Throws kunai. But is he a ninja dog? He's like a Ward 13 mutt. He
looks like a German Shepherd. Basically, yeah.
We did talk about making it so the bark could apply more stagger, right? And like it could be so you could hit react enemies that are in the air. So
he could bark at enemies. Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be cool.
Like he does that now. He barks at them now, and he pulls slight a bit of aggro, and that could be a number that we tune up and tune down. We just don't want him to get mowed down by like pulling aggro on every enemy, and then all of a sudden, oh, the dog's always dead, and we're like, okay, well maybe we
listen. Nothing can kill my dog in Apocalypse because I go into rugged. He's a beast. Because you guys buffed him, right? For Apocalypse, you said.
Yeah. He gets a higher.
He is very tanky right now. He feels very good. Like I've even been playing him sometimes as a tank dog. He's a beast. He just like stays in there, eats all the aggro, and I'm like, yep, I'll mow him down.
It's great. It's funny, like when we get those initial balancing numbers, like people will play the game and then they'll say like, they clearly didn't test this on Apocalypse. The dog dies all the time. But that's not true. What happens is we test the game on Apocalypse, and these are people that can one-shot every boss, that can beat them without taking damage, that know when and how to use the mechanics of the dog at the most efficient, what the build is. And that's unfair to players to expect them to know all that right off the jump, right? Yeah. So we're like, okay, we should err on the side of caution and make the guy a little bit stronger. That doesn't mean that people aren't that people are bad. It just means they don't have all the info, and we can't expect everybody to have the info.
I think that even the way that he is right now, where I think he's super tanky in Apocalypse, I still think that he's fine because he doesn't deal that much damage.
He doesn't deal that much damage. He's more of like a bleed applicator, a distraction, and he was never meant to do a ton of damage. In fact, in early testing, he used to one-shot all scrubs. Like he used to do like run up and he'd go bite. And he would bite a guy and die. And then so you try to shoot something and the dog would kill everything. We're like, okay, that's a little strong. And then combined with the fact that he can revive you was like, okay, that's also a little strong.
And then on top of that, like I'm stacking skill damage on top of everything.
You know what's funny is we just did a devs react to speed run of Remnant. And the guy did it like an hour, and he picked handler first because there's two benefits. One is that his default trait is movement speed.
Yeah,
right?
You move faster.
And then the second thing is, of course, just in case you mess up, you get a free life, right?
Yeah.
And it's only on a 3-minute cooldown compared to the...
It's very good. Stronger. It is excellent. Like I love handling. And the thing is, even recently, I actually forgot that the dog skill actually gives you movement speed. So sometimes I would trigger the dog skill, and I was like, wow, why am I moving faster?
Yeah. Well, and also a thing that's really good about the handler in co-op is that if you build up your move speed, nobody else has to build move speed because everybody moves the speed of the handler.
Yeah.
If you ever, one of the perks, so you just get him up to the max, 150 or 200% movement speed, and then everybody just runs fast as long as they're close. Yeah, and so they can put it into
fantastic.
Other stuff. So
I love it. I think guys got really great diversity. I'm super excited to see what comes of the DLC. But I'm gonna let you go, Ben, because like, listen, for those of you watching, we're recording this on a Sunday. Okay, I messaged Ben.
It is a Sunday.
Messaged Ben almost 2 hours ago, and I was like, "Hey, are we doing this?" And it's like, "Oh, let me get out of bed."
Well, it was funny because it was still 11 and I wasn't like asleep. I was just reading my phone. I was reading Reddit and I was reading Twitter, just to see what people were talking about and this and that. And then I was talking to my wife Abby. I'm like, oh, I got to get up at 9:30 tomorrow because I got to do a Remnant call for somebody else, right? Like, and I'm like, oh, I hate getting up. And then right after I said that, you messaged me, like, hey, what's up? We doing this? And I'm like, oh God, I got to do this one too. I like talking about Remnant, but it is funny because it's like, nonstop. I mean, luckily I like Remnant, so I don't mind talking about it at all. It's just sometimes you're just like, but if it was an hour later, it'd be so much better. This one was fine. I mean, it was 11. It wasn't late or anything, or early. You didn't wake me up or anything. But
okay,
yeah. Well, as long as you guys get the information that you want, and as long as people know that we, like I said, in the long run, we are constantly looking to update Remnant and fix some of the issues, and we're never trying to take away fun as much as people may think that. Even though it's a small percentage, we're always looking for ways to better the game. And feedback like from yourself, like I said, you're the sole reason we did loadouts. You can tell.
Yeah, exactly. No, guaranteed.
Right?
What do you mean, guaranteed. Just kidding? Don't say that. It's for real.
Just kidding. Just kidding. And we're always looking for that stuff. So even in the video, for people that get this far in this video, like put stuff in the comments because we read the comments of videos of interviews that we do as well. Just be constructive about it. Yeah. That's all I gotta say.
So one final thing, what is your recommendation for anybody jumping into the DLC on Tuesday?
My recommendation would be, well, again, if you've already beaten Loathsome and you're just coming back and you want to experience new content, definitely just do the one-shot adventure. Well, don't just do it, but do the one-shot adventure. See how you like it. See if you can find Ritualists. See if you can find some of the other stuff. It's really cool, but then, hey, maybe start a new game with Ritualist and see how fun that is, because there's a lot of new combinations, right? There's 11 other archetypes that can go with the Ritualist. It's a lot of combinations, and then try some new builds, and then give us feedback on stuff you think we might still be missing. I wish I had more shields. I wish I had more this. I wish I had a gun that did explosions, because having a handgun that does with explosions isn't enough.
It's not. We always need more explosions.
Always need more explosions. Yeah, but that's the thing. Come to our Discord. Leave feedback. The only thing we ask is be constructive. Like you can totally say, I'm not a fan of this, but it's very helpful when you say what you might like as
instead
an option, right? Because if and we got to finish the video with a Ratatasker shout out here. He's got some really good constructive criticism, and he'll say, "Oh, I really like this," or I wish they had done things this way. So, props to him for that. But some people will look at something and go, "This is the dumbest thing ever. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it." I'm like, okay, well, you've given us nothing to fix. You've given us nothing to even talk about. But if you say, "Look, man, I find this gun to be extremely weak and underpowered, especially compared to these two other options," you've already given me info that I can look at without even suggesting what you might like. If you just say, if I compare this against this, or this ring does what that ring does, but it's weaker, I'm like, actually, you bring up a good point. That's an oversight. Let me compare that, right? You could also go, hey, I wish a gun had explosive rounds in the long gun slot. That's actually just a new suggestion for content where we're like, is that something we're okay with? Cool. Instead of like, the long guns suck because they don't have well, even that has feedback.
I can't wait to see the explosive long gun show up, and I'll be like, yes, it was me.
Maybe we'll call it Shield Breakers. No, Iron Breaker. We'll call it Iron Breaker.
The Iron
It'll
Breaker,
be a shot of Shields up Iron Breaker.
The explosive long gun.
we love Breaker, Driver, Buster. It's a running joke. We're like, hey, we can't think of a name for this gun. Let's call it Flame Buster. Let's call it Rock Breaker. Let's call it Iron Driver. It's just a joke, right? So it'll be the Shields Up Iron Breaker. We'll call it Iron Breaker. It'll be a long gun.
Okay. I'll take it.
Then you'll be like, I'm forever in this lore.
I'm forever.
Yep.
But anyway, Ben, thank you very much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Guys, if you enjoyed this, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, bell notification icon, all that jazz. And if you still haven't played Remnant, you friggin' should. I've said it multiple times, one of the most underrated and overlooked games that came out this year.
Appreciate it.
Peace out,
Talk to
team.
you guys soon.